If I told you that I went to see a musical based on a classic novel by Leo Tolstoy, War and Peace, which is 1200 pages long, you might wonder, why would you do that to yourself? But when I tell you that I'm talking about Natasha, Pierre and the Great Comet of 1812, then you'd know that this musical is the talk of the town. And in this video, I'm gonna tell you why. Welcome to my channel, I'm Christina and I'm here to help you have the best London theatre experience. So if you like the sound of it, then make sure to subscribe. The first thing that makes Natasha, Pierre and the Great Comet of 1812 so special is its exceptionally long title. I'm joking. Obviously, it is the story. The story is based, as mentioned, on War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy, but not the entire novel. Only 70 pages, a segment where very juicy things happen. So I need to show you this. I also really love this illustration. And Natasha and Pierre have nothing to do with each other, seemingly. And Natasha is a young girl who goes to Moscow to visit her godmother, while Andre, her fiance, is in war. And she also takes her cousin Sonia with her. The two of them with their godmother are having a great time in Moscow. But on the other hand, you have Pierre, who is deeply unhappy and such a pensive character, who is married to Helene, who is not really the nicest person to him and is a bit of a promiscuous character. And she is sister to Anatole. And Anatole is the guy that we want to talk about because Anatole manages to seduce Natasha. And Natasha falls in love with him and breaks off engagement with Andre. Are you still following me? This story is the perfect love triangle, or I don't know however many angles this has, but there are so many exciting stories that this segment of War and Peace brings, and it's as juicy as it gets and as fun as it gets, and there are so many interesting characters. And this is the first reason why this musical is so acclaimed, because it really hones onto a very specific snapshot from this very well-established classic and also such a big and important novel that maybe no one would connect with being a musical. But when you put this into this family tree and see how everyone is interacting with each other, then it all makes sense why this makes such a great story and such an entertaining watch. This is one of those musicals that everyone was waiting for with such big anticipation, because the soundtrack for the musical and just general the vibe of this musical, and also I guess unavailability, because there are not too many productions of this musical that happened, made it one thing to like really wait for and look forward to. And finally the day has arrived. So when this production was announced, the tickets were sold out immediately, and while it's still running until February the 8th, the tickets are really hard to come by. And at the end of the video I'm going to actually tell you how I managed to secure mine if you're still willing to try. But now let's move on to the second really great thing about this musical, and that is the music. While the story of this musical is definitely the reason number one why it's so successful, the reason number two is definitely its music. Dave Malloy, who's written music lyrics and the book for this musical, has created magic, an eclectic mix of genres such as Russian folk, electronic, operatic, all of these things blended together in a beautiful and harmonious piece of work. Also, there are some really amazing musicians on stage who are playing cellos and violins, and then there's also accordion and piano and everything that you can think of, and all of these musicians are actually scattered around the stage. And Domer Warehouse is particularly small venue, so it was really interesting to see how the cast members were also interacting with the musicians, but it really felt like something that they were creating on stage almost as organic as possible. Like right there, right now, they were coming up with all these stories and thoughts. It is also interesting that this musical is written with audience being a key participant in a way, because even in the prologue, they talk to the audience directly. They even say like, it's all in your program. They lay down everyone's characters and what we need to know about them, and it really introduces you to the story and makes sure that you as an audience member are kind of like on board with it. It doesn't leave you a lot to figure out. Basically, after the prologue is done, you are understanding who's who, what's happening. Andre is not there, Anatole is hot. There are all these like fun lyrics that set the scene but also give a little bit of extra information about each character, so by the time you start watching them interact, you kind of know what you are meant to expect from each of them. There are so many interesting musical numbers in this show. Prologue was definitely so captivating, but then also the scene when they're at the opera was amazing, as well as Natasha and Anatole. Then also there was one around letters where they were kind of throwing letters around, and it was really great to see them. Balaga was also great. They're like, so many of these numbers really feel like almost their own entities, and they can all be performed almost like separately. They're just like so interesting, and they bring a lot of tension and also excitement for everyone watching. One of the most emotional moments in the show was definitely Sonia alone, where basically Sonia and Natasha fall out and then Sonia is singing about her, and this was so beautifully delivered. And then also the last bit, The Great Comet of 1812, was like such a great and aspirational piece. Honestly, like the musical really takes you on a journey, both in terms of the story and in terms of the music. And I think that's one of the main reasons why people are so captivated by it, because these two elements really marry well. The third reason why this London production is so acclaimed is also its cast. If you're a fan of J.B. Muscato from maybe Moulin Rouge, or you've seen him in some other productions, then you'd be pleased to know that he is fantastic in this production too. He is playing the hottie, the baddie Anatole who seduces Natasha, and he is so great in this role and also so despicable and just like pure evil but charming evil. So it is really beautiful seeing him perform and being in this type of role where he can really shine as that kind of like a bad guy, and just the flair that he brings to the stage and the way that he interacts with other characters in his kind of inner circle is so great to see, because his world is very much contrasted compared to like Natasha. She's very polished and beautiful and naive, and he's this bad guy who really wants to take her heart and basically in a way make her life a little bit more miserable. Natasha is played by Chamiza Dornford-May, and this performance was fantastic. She was really great in this role, especially because the character arc is very delicate to manage, because Natasha comes to Moscow and she's waiting for her fiancé to come back, and she's full of these dreams and ideas, but at the same time a bit scared and too young to almost tap into them. And then all of a sudden the whole new world opens in front of her, and that world actually is also Anatole and like her being with her cousin Sonia in this new place, and all of these elements are almost like visible on Chamiza's face as they're changing. And then this all escalates in a big heartbreak and the breakup of the engagement, and then the full circle when she actually meets with Pierre and the two of them have conversation and really offer to each other that comfort that neither of them know that they can actually offer to each other. This brings us to talking about Pierre. Pierre is played by Declan Bennett, and it's also very interesting in terms of the interaction of these two characters. Technically, they do not interact until the end of the musical, and that's kind of how the story wraps up. But the impact that they have on each other is basically everything that we've been wanting to see for all of the time of watching the musicals, because you're wondering, well, it's called Natasha, Pierre, you know, and the Great Comet of 1812. Something needs to happen between the two of them. At first, they thought, oh, maybe they are gonna end up being together or something like that, but no, they literally represent the hope for each other, because Pierre is the character that is very lonesome and very depressed and very unhappy and looking for meaning in his life, and he can't see it. And just by kind of being a protector in a way for Natasha and also advocate for her in front of Andre, he almost finds his purpose in seeing her so crushed and emotional and like she's lost all of her dreams and hopes for her life to turn out well. He finds the hope in himself to encourage her, and it's such a beautiful end to the show, but it's also just a testament how Declan has handled this character. And Pierre is almost the most grounded character out of all of them, but he's also the saddest character. Most of Pierre's numbers are very slow and pensive, and just they drag almost the show down up until the very end, where actually Pierre is the person who provides the hope for everyone involved. The rest of the cast that this production has assembled is absolutely spectacular. If you've seen Standing at the Sky's Edge, then you might remember Maimouna Nemoun. She's playing Sonia. Then also Kat Simmons is playing Helen, and she is very, very good in her role. And there were also some amazing dancers, and I particularly remember Chihiro Kawasaki. She was fantastic, and she was an ensemble member, and she had these quite a few different elements where she was dancing, and that was really impressive to see. So overall, the cast in London is 10 out of 10, and definitely the reason why a lot of people want to see this show. I do really hope if they transfer the show to the West End that there will be also the same people playing, because it's honestly so spectacular to see them all performing live. The fourth thing that I want to talk about is set and costume design. If you've ever been to Donmar Warehouse, then you know that this is a very small venue and it's very intimate. And this is not the first time that this musical has found its place in a very intimate venue. When it was on Broadway, the production initially included chairs and table amongst the actors, or basically the actors were performing amongst tables and chairs where the audience was seated. And it was very intimate and almost you're part of this conversation that is happening between these characters. In Doma Warehouse is not to that level, but also given that it's such a small space, you could definitely see actors walking by you and you can see their kind of like costume changes or that they walk off. So there's a lot of that intimate feeling that Doma Warehouse also provides. When it comes to set, it is very simple but effective. Basically, there are big letters Moscow kind of written, but then the O is shaped in this kind of light, which goes up and down depending on the scene. And then at some points, it kind of lights up the whole room. And the other ones, they use it almost as like a bit of a barrier. So it's really interesting solution, because I think given that this is also the Great Comet of 1812, there's also a little bit of that. And then it ends basically with Pierre looking up and that whole like light kind of lifts up. So there were so many intricate details when it comes to set, but like when you look at it, it's kind of very bare. Since they didn't go for a really big set, this allowed a lot of space for characters to interact and have these great choreographies that were really engaging. At some point, one of the cast members sits in someone's lap. In the other moment, there is a character giving a shot to someone in the audience. So there are like all these different things that happen, which really make it an engaging watch. And the fact that the set is pretty stripped down, it really helps with delivering these. Costumes very much reflect the core of each character, and while Natasha is in this blue beautiful dress, well, this is a very well put together look. On the other hand, you have Pierre in a leather jacket. He looks like an old rocker, and then Anatole with the eyeliner, and Beluga that is very flamboyant in this like purple coat. So there are like so many different layers to these characters that are also reflected in the way that they're dressed, which kind of helps really tie it all nicely together. All of these reasons contributed to this show developing a bit of a cult-like following, and when it was announced and when the tickets went on sale, it was immediately sold out. Definitely one of the shows where people are looking for an extra ticket, but it's really hard to come by one. So when it comes to securing a ticket for this show, it's not easy, but it's also not impossible, because I'm a living proof that I managed to do it. Basically at 10 a.m. every day, Doma Warehouse releases return tickets, and you can go into the website and check if there are any tickets available. A caveat here is that there is a queue every day at 10 a.m. You are placed in a kind of bit of a holding queue, and then when tickets are released, it's literally a matter of luck if you'll be able to secure it, or at least that was the way when I tried. But then I tried around 12 or 1 a.m. on that day, and then I managed to find there were like maybe 3 seats left. So I would say keep trying even if you are unsuccessful at 10 a.m. because people might be returning throughout the day. As always, if you aren't sure how to do it on the website, just call the box office. They might be able to actually give you some extra tips, and if you really want to see the show, I think it's totally worth speaking to them to see when is the right time to come or to check on the website, and then you can gather some insights that way. The show closes on the 8th of February. I would be very surprised if this show doesn't transfer to West End, but also it might be that that's not possible and that maybe there is a footage released or something like that. I don't know any of these things. I do think that it's a fantastic show that definitely needs to stay in London for a little bit longer for more people to see it, but I'm not sure if that's gonna happen, but it's definitely worth trying for tickets if you get a chance. There are 5 more shows that I really enjoyed last year and that I talked about in this video, so if you're looking for more theater inspiration, then I definitely recommend you check it out.